This is the Discontinuity Thesis, a 7-part series on why AI breaks the wage-demand circuit that post-war capitalism depends on. Written by Ben Liurongs. Episode 2: Interface Collapse. The question in this episode is how task-level AI dominance propagates into whole workflows. The most respectable defense of the continuity story has always been this: AI can do tasks, but tasks are not jobs. Jobs are bundles of judgment, relationships, context, and physical world friction. AI can write a paragraph. It cannot run a legal practice, manage a team, close a deal, or sit in a meeting. This was the most thoughtful version of the continuity argument. It came from labor economics, productivity research, and business school theory. It held up for a while because it was true in the same way a gate is true. It was true until enough of it came off the hinges. This episode closes the gate. The thesis does not need AI to replace whole occupations in one step. It never did. It needs only enough economically valuable task units to cross the cost and quality threshold that firms start rebuilding workflows around machines instead of people. A job is not a sacred object, it is a bundle of tasks. Once the bundle becomes decomposable, the worker becomes decomposable with it. What makes the bundle decomposable is interface collapse. That is the subject of this episode. A great deal of white-collar labor was historically protected by software fragmentation. The worker did not only think, the worker moved. They moved between the inbox and the spreadsheet, the CRM and the browser, the calendar and the document editor, the dashboard and the ticketing system, the codebase and the internal wiki. Humans survived because they were the integration layer between systems that did not talk to each other cleanly. This was a real moat. It was also invisible to most of the people who held it, because the labor of stitching looked like the labor of thinking. A surprising fraction of so-called knowledge work was not pure judgment. It was moving information between semi-compatible systems while maintaining enough context not to break the process. The worker absorbed the friction that the software stack produced. The wage compensated the absorption. The moat is now collapsing. Once an AI can see screens, click, type, browse, call tools, manipulate files, and persist across a multi-step workflow, the boundary between producing output and doing work begins to dissolve. The model is no longer a text generator on the other side of a keyboard. It is an interface operator. The API automates where systems cooperate. The GUI automates where they do not. Few ordinary enterprise software environments can rely on fragmentation as a durable moat once both routes exist. The interface capability is being tracked publicly. The benchmark is OS World Verified. It measures whether a model can navigate real software through screenshots, keyboard, and mouse actions to complete multi-step tasks across applications, real desktop environments, real file operations, real workflows. The trajectory is steep. GPT 5.2 reached 47.3% on OS World Verified. GPT 5.4 cleared 75%. GPT 5.5 hit 78.7%. For comparison, the human baseline on the same benchmark is around 72%. On this benchmark, frontier models now exceed the reported human baseline. Now there is a common objection here. People look at 78% and say that compounds badly. A 10-step workflow at 78% per step succeeds end-to-end roughly 8% of the time. That sounds fatal. The objection misreads the benchmark. OS World Verified is not reporting per-step accuracy. It is reporting end-to-end task success on multi-step compute-use tasks involving real applications, file operations, and workflows that span multiple programs. Treating the score as a per-step probability and exponentiating it double counts the compounding problem. The benchmark already contains the compounding problem. The 78.7% figure is the rate at which the model completes the entire task successfully, not the rate at which any individual step succeeds. Production deployment adds distribution shift, latency, permissions, audit trails, retry logic, escalation paths, and verifier cost on top of the benchmark performance. Those are real costs. They enter the unit cost dominance equation as deployment costs. They do not refute the interface capability the benchmark measures. The production comparison is therefore not raw AI versus ideal human. It is AI plus retries, guardrails, escalation and verification against human workers plus training, supervision, review, error correction, management and quality control. The relevant question is not whether AI is perfect, it is whether the full AI stack reaches equivalent reliability at lower cost than the full human stack. For an increasing fraction of professional digital workflows, the answer is yes. The clean way to think about all this is as a cascade of 4 layers. The first layer is task-level unit cost dominance. The previous episode covered it. AI plus thin oversight produces professional task outputs at equivalent quality, faster speed, lower cost. The second layer is interface and workflow dominance. AI operates through the same software environments where work happens. It handles the stitching between them. This is what this episode is about. It is rapidly crossing. The third layer is job-level dominance, whole roles becoming economically unnecessary as enough human task volume gets stripped out. This is partial and uneven. The thesis does not require it. The fourth layer is labor market dominance. Wage labor stops being the mass route to economic agency. This is where the thesis actually lives. Critics prefer to argue at the third layer. Residual human tasks are easy to find inside any existing job, but the thesis is not defended at the third layer and never was. The argument runs from the first 2 layers directly to the fourth. Workflow recomposition can suppress hiring, break training ladders, and collapse mass labor absorption without any single occupation being formally eliminated. This is what makes the displacement quiet. Mass displacement will not first look like mass unemployment, it will look like non-absorption, fewer entry-level roles, fewer junior ladders, fewer graduate pathways, fewer promotions, more contractors, more review roles, productivity gains that do not reach wages, incumbents held in place while new entrants fail to launch. A headline unemployment rate that looks fine while the system underneath has stopped reproducing itself. The tells to monitor are specific. Entry-level hiring decline in exposed fields, junior to senior ratio compression, weak graduate absorption despite stable aggregate employment, wage stagnation in exposed cognitive work, productivity gains not passed to labor, contractorization, delayed retirement combined with fewer new entrants, expansion of review and validation roles that do not scale into careers. Stanford's Digital Economy Lab has reported the first expected signal. Brynjolfsson, Shandar and Chen find that early career workers aged 22 to 25 in the most exposed occupations have experienced a 16% relative employment decline after controlling for firm-level shocks. Less exposed fields and more experienced workers remained stable or grew. The adjustment is more visible in employment than in compensation. It is concentrated where AI is more automative rather than augmentative. That is exactly what the thesis predicts. Not everyone gets fired at once. Entry ladders narrow first, training ladders break first, junior absorption weakens first, aggregate employment can look fine while the reproduction mechanism fails underneath. Aggregate calm is not a refutation if the no-scream indicators are moving. That is the whole point of calling it the no-scream principle. Now the augmentation argument again. The standard reply to all of this is that humans will work with AI. That sentence is doing more work than it can carry. There are 3 kinds of complementarity. They are not the same thing. Genuine complementarity means AI raises the marginal value of human labor. The worker becomes more productive, more valuable, captures gain through wages, bargaining power, advancement. This is real. It exists. It is not guaranteed to persist because the same model that makes the worker more valuable today may absorb the worker's role tomorrow. Transitional complementarity means humans supervise, correct, validate, integrate, and absorb responsibility while the AI improves. This is the phase most commonly mistaken for the future of work. It is unstable by design. The human role gets thinner as the system gets better. Theatrical complementarity means humans remain for trust, liability, regulation, customer comfort, ritual legitimacy, or institutional optics. The human is still in the room but no longer economically central. This is not augmentation, it is managed displacement wearing augmentation's clothes. The augmentation narrative points at the second stage and calls it the destination. The thesis argues it is the corridor. Once that corridor is named, humans will work with AI stops being a rebuttal. It becomes a question about which complementarity is meant. The honest answer is that genuine complementarity must be demonstrated, not assumed. Transitional complementarity is unstable by construction. Theatrical complementarity is displacement under another name. Interface collapse is not something firms choose to deploy as a discrete decision. It is the cumulative effect of thousands of small workflow changes, each defensible on its own terms. A firm does not announce that it is rebuilding its operations around AI agents. It deploys a model in customer service, then expands the deployment, then connects the model to the ticketing system, then connects the ticketing system to the CRM, then automates the escalation path, then reduces the customer service headcount as the deployed system handles more cases. Each step is incremental. Each step is justified by quarterly cost-benefit analysis. The aggregate effect is workflow recomposition, but no individual decision looks like workflow recomposition. The decisions look like ordinary process improvement. This is why interface collapse is hard to govern from inside the firm. The decisions are too small to require board approval. They are too distributed to be coordinated as a single intervention. They are made by the line managers responsible for the budget, who face direct competitive pressure. The CEO who wants to slow the propagation cannot do so without overriding hundreds of small operational decisions, each of which is locally rational. The CEO who tries to slow the propagation produces a firm with higher costs than competitors who do not. The next episode asks why no actor can restrain this propagation once it begins. The answer is the multiplayer prisoner's dilemma. The interface was the moat. Once the interface collapses, task dominance has a route into the job. That is episode 2 of the Discontinuity Thesis. The full essay, transcript and citations are at unitcostdominance.com. Next, the multiplayer prisoner's dilemma, why restraint is not an equilibrium.